We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip. When it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Arr, fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.
Welcome to the deep dive. We've got a really fascinating source for this dive today.
Yeah. What's that?
Well, it's not a stack of articles this time, but actually a collection of search terms, keywords, that you or maybe others were looking up recently, all around the tensions between Israel and Iran.
Interesting. So it's like peering directly into the questions and concerns people had, like right in that moment.
Exactly.
So our mission today, then, is to take this raw data, these specific searches, and try to extract the core actions, the key players, locations.
The underlying issues.
Right, the issues that they collectively shine a light on. See what picture emerges.
Okay, let's unpack this unique source then. And I mean, what immediately jumps out from these terms is the sheer level of concern.
How so?
Just think about the frequency of searches like WW3, war with Iran, Iran-Israel war, and Israel-Iran war.
Wow.
That wasn't some, fringe search. It was right there near the surface.
That is fascinating because it really sets the stage, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It tells us that for many people looking into this, the immediate thought was the potential for a massive escalation.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, with that level of anxiety sort of hanging in the air, let's look at the specific actions the search is focused on.
Exactly. And the core events capturing attention are crystal clear in these terms.
Mm-hmm.
Israel attacks Iran, Israel strikes Iran, Israel bombs Iran. That was definitely a major focal point.
Yeah, that's prominent.
Yeah.
But what's crucial here, and you can see it immediately in these searches, is that this wasn't perceived as like one-sided.
Right.
Right alongside those Israeli actions, people were searching for Iran attacks Israel, Iran strikes Israel, Iran bombing Israel, and maybe specifically Iran retaliation.
So the data itself shows that tit-for-tat idea was top of mind for people.
Absolutely. And the searches, they even get into the mechanics too, revealing what people wanted to know about how these strikes happened.
Like what?
Well, terms like airstrikes and drones appear, people trying to understand the methods being used.
What?
And the presence of preemptive strike alongside retaliation in the searches. That's particularly interesting.
Why is that?
It suggests people were trying to understand not just the what and how, but the why.
Mm-hmm.
Was one side reacting or was the other acting first?
Yeah.
That kind of question.
Right, the motivation behind it all. So, okay, who were the key players driving this, according to these searches? The terms clearly highlight the main state actors, Israel and Iran. No surprise there.
No, but they also zeroed in on specific individuals.
Like who?
Well, on the Israeli side, the name Netanyahu featured pretty prominently. Searched as Benjamin Netanyahu and also the familiar Bibi Netanyahu.
Okay. And for Iran?
For Iran, searches focused on Khamenei, including Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and the term Iran's supreme leader.
Right.
And the name of the Iran president, Masoud Pezeshkian, also appeared in the terms list we have.
So these were kind of the political faces people were looking up.
Exactly. But what's also striking is the specific interest in military and organizational figures.
Oh,
yeah. Searches included Hossein Salami, often identified as Irji's chief,
which stands for?
head of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps.
Got it.
We also saw searches for Mohammad Bagheri, links to Iran chief of staff. Other names like Ali Shamkhani, Gholam Ali Rashid, and Feridun Abbasi were present too. And there was even a search term, Orji chief killed. Now that reflects concerns or maybe reports about casualties, though the search data itself doesn't confirm a specific event there, obviously.
Just that people were searching for it.
Exactly.
And beyond individuals, the searches also highlighted the key institutions, right? Like IDF.
Israel's Defense Forces.
Yeah, and IRGC, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps. We saw searches like, what is IRGC too?
People trying to understand what that group actually is.
And Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency. We also see IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency.
Suggesting searches may be related to international oversight, nuclear inspections, that sort of thing.
So the prominence of these specific military and intelligence figures, alongside the political leaders and the big state bodies like the IRGC and IDF, it really shows people were trying to understand the whole chain of command.
Yeah, and the organizations carrying out or, responding to the actions.
Okay, now let's talk geography. Where were people looking for these events to unfold? The searches tell a story there, too.
Definitely. Tehran, Iran's capital, was heavily searched.
Right. I saw terms specifying events right there. Tehran explosion, Tehran bombing, Tehran attack, and even Israel strikes Tehran.
But significantly, the term Natanz was also very prominent.
Ah, Natanz.
Often linked directly to Natanz nuclear facility and Natanz reactor.
And that immediately connects the actions people were searching about to Iran's nuclear program, doesn't it? Which is a major underlying concern.
Absolutely. It's a key link.
What other locations popped up in the searches?
Well, there was Tabriz within Iran, and interestingly, regional locations like Syria, suggesting activity or interest beyond the main two countries. And Saudi Arabia appeared, maybe indicating awareness of the wider Middle East context, the potential ripple effects.
Right. Even specific infrastructure like Ben Gurion Airport was searched for.
And people were also looking for just basic context, searches for Iran map and map of Israel and Iran, just trying to get oriented.
So it seems while strikes on major cities were searched, that real focus on Natanz clearly indicates that searches were also being driven by concerns about specific strategic targets.
Yeah, targets related to nuclear capabilities. It wasn't just random bombing searches.
And those nuclear capabilities. Well, that leads us directly to the stakes highlighted by the searches. It's really no surprise, given the focus on Natanz, that terms like, does Iran have nuclear weapons, were so highly searched.
Right. Along with, does Israel have nuclear weapons, Israel nuclear weapons, Iran nuclear, and Iran nuclear weapons? It's all over the search data.
This directly reflects that sort of fundamental concern underpinning the tensions, doesn't it?
It really does. And the appearance of Iran nuclear deal Israel shows people were also looking into the historical diplomatic context surrounding this whole issue, trying to understand the background.
What's fascinating is how quickly, like we mentioned right at the start, the searches jump to the most severe potential outcome, war.
Yeah, including WW3. That term showing up frequently is sobering.
It really underscores the high level of anxiety driving these searches, connecting the specific military actions directly to the potential for widespread conflict in the Middle East.
And terms like tensions, conflict, and even state of emergency appearing in the search data just reinforce this perception of, imminent danger that people seem to feel.
And that dynamic we saw earlier, retaliation versus preemptive strike, it pops up again here.
Reinforcing that people were actively trying to categorize the nature of the conflict. Was it reactive or proactive? Which side was doing what and why?
It tells us the searches weren't just like passive observation. They were an active attempt to understand the strategic framing of these events. Now, looking at the information landscape revealed by these searches, it's almost like seeing your own browser history laid bare, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
You were clearly consulting a really wide array of news sources, major international outlets like BBC News, Fox News, Jerusalem Post,
Haaretz, Al Jazeera News, Times of India, Reuters, WSJ, NET. They're all in there.
A real who's who of global news.
But the searches weren't limited to just the big international names, were they?
No, not at all. Terms like Arutz Sheva, Ynet News, I-24 News, Iran International, and even general searches for Iranian news and Israeli news were also present.
Which suggests, a drive to find specific regional perspectives or maybe potentially different slants on the story, not just a global wire view.
And you see that urgency, too, with terms like breaking news, latest news, and news today. People were actively seeking real-time updates as events unfolded.
Yeah, wanting that immediate information. It's also interesting to see specific reporter names appearing.
Like who?
Like Jennifer Griffin and Caitlin Collins.
What does that tell you?
Well, it indicates people were maybe following particular journalists covering the story, perhaps looking for trusted voices or specific reporting angles they valued.
Following the bylines, not just the headlines.
Exactly.
And some searches weren't even for news articles, but for, raw data. I saw Flight Radar 24 and Flight Radar 24 in the list.
That is telling, isn't it? It points to an impulse to find independent, maybe verifiable data points.
Like looking for aircraft movements yourself.
Perhaps, yeah. Trying to correlate with reports of strikes or activity, especially during a period of high uncertainty when maybe official reports are confusing or slow.
Makes sense. And finally, the economic impact was clearly on people's minds, too. We saw searches for futures market, S&P futures, and SPY futures.
Right. Connecting this back to the bigger picture, it shows the concerns weren't purely geopolitical or, about human impact. The potential financial repercussions were also a significant driver for information seeking.
Okay, so let's try to connect the dots here, based only on this specific collection of search terms you provided. What does it all add up to? It seems these searches reflect a perception where military actions by both Israel and Iran are immediately linked to sensitive sites like Natanz and key military leaders like the IRGC chief Hossein Salami.
Yes, the co-occurrence in the search data strongly suggests that people were making that connection. The strikes, Iran's nuclear program, and the specific military bodies believed to be involved.
So the narrative appearing in the searches is kind of one of strikes potentially related to nuclear capabilities overseen by these specific military figures.
That seems to be the picture emerging from the search behavior, yes.
And the presence of terms like retaliation and preemptive strike alongside the actual strike terms.
Right.
That captures the essence of a perceived back and forth.
A cycle of action and reaction, yeah. That's clearly how it was being framed or understood by those searching.
And the sheer range of news sources people looked at, coupled with searches for raw data, like flight tracking, it really highlights a determined effort to get information from multiple angles.
And potentially to verify official reports during a really fluid, confusing situation. Not just taking one source's word for it.
We also saw those little terms like spy and unilateral. Small details, perhaps, but they add layers to how these actions might have been framed or understood by people searching.
Little hints about the perceived nature of the actions, yeah. Espionage, maybe going it alone.
And the inclusion of political figures, commentators like Marco Rubio, Mark Levin, John Fetterman.
And the historical mention of Trump-Israel.
Right. It shows that the public's search for information wasn't limited to just the events themselves, but it extended to political commentary, reactions, and even historical context.
Trying to place it all within a broader political landscape.
So based purely on this unique snapshot of search terms, we see a clear focus on the specific actions by Israel and Iran, the key individuals and entities involved.
The critical importance placed on locations like Natanz.
And that ever-present question of nuclear capability driving so much of the concern.
All framed within the broader context of significant Middle East tensions. That immediate fear of wider conflict reflected in the WW3 searches. And this active, multifaceted search for information across a really wide spectrum of sources.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, thinking about this specific source. Given the stark prominence of terms like WW3 and war in this particular collection of searches we looked at, what does this specific list of keywords tell you about the level of public concern and anxiety surrounding these exact events and the underlying tensions right at that moment people were hitting search?